Greetings and salutations, fellow book readers. This is Mark from Living by Mark Szczepura. The book I'll review today is The Sun Also Rises. Before we continue, this is personalized limited edition of The Sun Also Rises with leather cover, designed and made by me. At the end of the video, I will tell you a couple of ways of how you can get one for yourself, if you are interested. Now let's get back to the review. The Sun Also Rises is a novel written by Ernest Hemingway and published in 1926. It is one of Hemingway's early works. He wrote it in his 20s, and the style shows it by being lighter and less tragic compared to his later novels, but it already carries the cynicism and the somber tone so common in his stories. Hemingway was a giant of American literature and probably the most responsible for bringing it onto the world stage. It is tragic he committed suicide when he was 60 years old, right when he probably was reaching his best writing years. What is The Sun Also Rises about? The book is a testimony to the expat life in Europe of the interwar years. It is Hemingway's tribute to the lost generation of which he was part. The plot is fictionalized account of Hemingway's own life in Paris in the 1920s and his trips to Spain. Now, let's do a bit of the plot. I'll be vague as not to spoil any surprises. There are three main characters. Jake, the narrator, who is an American expat living in Paris. He suffered an injury during the war, which affects his social life. Then there is Lady Brad Ashley, a divorced British femme fatale, and Robert Cohen, Jake's friend, who is an American Jew trying to fit into the WASP world. These three people form a type of love triangle and are the backbone of the story. The book is divided into three parts. Part 1 takes place in Paris, where Jake plays his regular game of tennis with Cohen, and later picks up a prostitute when strolling through the streets. In the evening, while dining with his new friend, Jake runs into Lady Brad Ashley, his old love interest, who brings a lot of intense memories back. She tells Jake she still loves him, but they both know there is no future for them together. Cohen also sees Brad and becomes somewhat infatuated by her, which is rather common for the men who meet her for the first time. In part 2, the three are joined by Jake's friend from New York, Bill, and Brad's fiancé, Mike. And all five decide to meet in Pamplona, Spain, for the annual San Fermin festival. Before the festival, Jake and Bill go on a fishing trip into the mountains, but Cohen decides against it. Instead, he prefers to wait for Brad and Mike in Pamplona. They all arrive in the town just in time for the festival and spend time eating, drinking, and watching bullfights. As the time passes and the consumption of alcohol increases, there starts to develop tension between Cohen and the rest of the men, partly incited by Lady Brad. And to increase the uneasiness a bit more, she decides to seduce a 19-year-old bullfighter named Romero. As the festival nears the end, the pressure between all the contenders reaches its maximum point and explodes. Book 3 starts when the festival ends and everybody sobers. The group's feelings are hurt, and each one chooses to go his own way. Jake decides to spend a week on the beach in San Sebastian, and once there, he receives a telegram from Brad, who is in Madrid and needs his help. So Jake takes a train to Madrid, where he meets with her and is told about her troubles. The book ends with Jake replying to Brad's admissions with, "Yes, isn't it pretty to think so?" And that's the basic plot. What did I think about The Sun Also Rises? It is a pleasurable and easy reading, but not as refined compared to Hemingway's later works. The simple writing style seems to diminish the complexities of the issues addressed, such as insecurity, repression, escape, and denial, but it makes visible some social issues of that time, such as emerging feminism, casual anti-Semitism, and even conversational racism. The book is probably the best description of the so-called lost generation, individuals who suffer psychological shell shock caused by the changes created by World War I, and the symptoms projected by those personalities are what the book is describing. Today they would probably be diagnosed with some form of post-traumatic stress disorder, and they would undergo some type of psychological treatment and might even be prescribed medication. But back then the solution was frequent partying and using alcohol as a painkiller. The lost generation found themselves psychologically and morally lost and their lives somewhat meaningless. So they choose to live one day at a time and focus on instant gratification. All their activities seem to be a distraction from boredom and serve as a disguise for the inner emptiness and unhappiness. The book's focus are the somewhat symbolic protagonists, and the plot is there to support, give dimension, and explore their characters. Jake is a symbol of growing male insecurity in a new and changing world. He's confused and unsure about his place in the modern society, and his war injury contributes to it by making him feel less of a man. And in addition, Brad's refusals of his advances further confirm his doubts. Lady Brad Ashley symbolizes a new, emerging woman, externally self-assured and decisive, but underneath insecure and constantly running away. Her short hair, manly name, and strong sex drive make her appear more masculine than the men around her. For example, she seduces the 19-year-old bullfighter just because she finds him pretty and she can. But all of it is a mask to hide her own fragility and self-doubt that cause her the internal feelings of deep unhappiness. Robert Cohen represents a lost soul. He moves between the US and Europe, but is happy in neither place. Being Jewish, he doesn't feel accepted and clings to Jake, who is his only friend, and he tries to convince him to leave everything behind and for both of them to go to South America, which for Cohen would be a continuation of his quest for a place he could call home. I don't know if it was Hemingway's intention, but Cohen might be seen as a symbol for all Jews, not wanted and eternally lost in search for their home, trying to fit into the unfriendly and foreign world. The novel's background is the 1920s Paris, seen through the expat eyes, with the late nights and intense conversation, stimulated by great quantities of wine. Some Americans probably stayed in Paris for the unique reason of being able to drink legally, since back in America the prohibition laws were in force at that time. But many Americans who felt lost and confused about their own existence were attracted to Paris and found the city neutral and safe. Thus the whole idea of the lost generation emerging there. Another location where the novel's plot takes action is Spain, specifically the famous San Fermin festival in Pamplona, with the running of the balls and the bullfights. For Hemingway, during his Lost Generation years, Spain was very important. It was a bit of a fantasy land, which he would visit as often as his economic condition permitted. He was a great fan of the bullfights, and in the book, Jake, who represents Hemingway himself, is called a bullfight aficionado, which explains us to have deep affection for something. Hemingway equated facing the bull to facing one's own fears and challenging the dead itself. The bullfight in the novel seems to represent life and its struggles, brutal and violent, with death for the loser and fame for the winner. In the book, Belmont, who is an older bullfighter, represents the defeat or the past and is disliked by the crowd. And the young Romero is the winner or the future, loved and admired. To sum it up, The Sun Also Rises because it is one of the first of Hemingway's novels, and it is written in simple and direct prose, and can be considered an entry book to his writings. It might be even less complex than we make it. Many people, including myself, dissect the book in search for hidden symbolism, but I am not sure if it is needed. And even if it was Hemingway's intention, it seems that sometimes we go too deep under the surface in search of some kind of hidden message, and because of it, we miss what's in front of us. Perhaps the best way to take this book is to read it superficially and enjoy the dialogues and description of the places and events, such as the Lost Generations Paris, Spain, or the San Fermin Festival and the bullfighting. The Sun Also Rises seems to be highly autobiographical, but how much and what parts are is questionable. So I think it is the best to read it as fiction and not to try to draw too many conclusions about Hemingway and his life. For the film buffs, there is a pretty good adaptation of the novel under the same title, produced in 1956, starring Tyrone Powers and Ava Gardner, which I found very enjoyable, especially the visuals of the San Fermin Festival with its famous running of the balls. Okay, let's stop here and talk about the physical book. Okay, I had to go take a shower, but I am back. So let's talk about the physical book. The book I am holding is a paperback which I transform into hardcover leather-bound edition. To make the cover, I use grade A, naturally tan hide. I buy from a tanner in North Spain. It is the same leather Louis Vuitton uses to make his bags, so it is top quality. I do all the processing of the leather myself. Well, first I designed the cover, which what I did here. I took an image from I think it was old movie poster from the 1950s of the Sun Also Rises, and I adapted it to make a book cover, and so that's how it came out. This is the front of it, and then there is the back, little description of what the book is about, and it looks pretty nice. I know, I mean it's leather, and the images go on it very nice. The texture, I know you can see, and it's pretty nice. Okay, then I take a copy of the paperback and I add wood boards to the front and the back of the cover, as you can see here, And I reinforced the spine with cotton cords, which you can see if you open the book. And I add the bookends to the bookends, since without them the book looks a little naked to me. And then I cover everything with cloth tape. I also reinforce the inside of the book with the same cloth tape. And sometimes I even go into the second page if the book requires it. Well, this one didn't. Okay, next I dye the leather with leather inks, and I cover the outside and the inside of the book with it. Instead of glue, I sew the cover with thick cord, which to me looks nicer. Also, I can print something on the inside, as I have done here. This is an excerpt from the book, but I can print something personal as well. Now, I will make a maximum of 100 editions of each title. Each one will be numbered and initialed, and the numbers will go in chronological order from 2 up, since number 1 stays with me. The price will be around $100. So if you would like me to make one for you, you can click below on my email and send me a message. I do not guarantee I will do it, since it will depend on the time I have available, access to leather, and if I can get my hands on the copy of the book. Now, if you're not willing to spend the $100, but you still want the book, what you can do is click below on the PayPal link and donate $3 or more to my channel. And for every 100 donations, I will make a lottery and draw one name. And the winner will receive the book. So if you're cheap but feel lucky, this might be the way to do it. Also, your donations give me the extra motivation to make the book reviews, and I appreciate them very much. So thank you in advance. One more thing, when you make your donation, remember to include the title of the book you would like to win. The book itself is beautiful. Visually, it has a very nice texture. It smells great, and the more you handle it, the more beautiful it will become. And it makes a great gift for yourself or somebody who appreciates books. So if you want one, don't snooze or you might lose. Well, that's it. So let's end it here. And until next time, keep your ear close to the ground and read a book. Adios.